I don't talk to myself. I talk with myself. It's been about a week and a half since my last confession. And the question I've asked myself this time is, am I really alone, or am I just unfamiliar with being with myself? What's really interesting about that question is really understanding the difference, I believe, with knowing the difference between being alone and being lonely. And I am not alone. And even with the children growing up and moving on and, starting their own lives and things of that nature, I am not alone. And because I do obviously still live with someone, right? So I have my husband. So that is one. Two, I also have God with me and in me. So I'm not alone. But I think what happens with me is that there are times of loneliness because I do not have the community and or the extended family, no matter whose side it is, whether it's my side of the family or my husband's side of the family. I don't have the extended family. And then I also don't have the extended church family, and friend groups that naturally pop up, when you are active in a church community. So I am lonely because of those reasons. It gets a little deeper too specifically when it comes to being home. Chris and I are very different. We have different personalities, and they're also just different, experiences that we've had, and it's the nature and nurture, and it shaped us into who we are. And so for me, all the things that I've experienced, good and bad and indifferent, and couple that with who I am naturally, I am the kind of person who will reach out, right? So I think most people will understand introvert, extrovert. So I'm the extroverted one. So even if I'm having a hard day, I want to connect with someone. So I want to reach out and touch, feel, see, talk to, whatever it is. I want to make a connection versus make a withdrawal of myself or needing of someone else. I need to make the connection with other people in order to sort of kind of reboot, if you will, and recharge. And being in an intimate relationship with someone who is the total opposite of that has spaces and times of loneliness. And that is very challenging, because I'm actually the kind of person who doesn't mind being alone. I'm comfortable with being by myself, I'm one of those weirdos who, if I need to, if I just want to have a hankering, go out to lunch by myself, I am totally fine with that. It doesn't bother me one bit. And I have a good girlfriend, my best friend, who is like, who's become family, right? So my sister friend, she's like, I don't like going out to lunch by myself or dinner by myself. Listen, I have no problems doing that. I enjoy my own company. I enjoy people watching. I enjoy just sitting there, reading the menu, reading the room, just whatever it is. I don't have to be with other people in that way when it comes to, okay, I'm just going to stay home because I have no one else to go out with. Like, if I don't have anyone else to go out with, I'm going to be my own company, and I'm going to be cracking up and acting a fool. And because of my personality, I won't be alone for too long. I will make a friend with the next table. I will make a friend with the server, the bartender. Not that I'm sitting at the bar drinking drinks, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to have some kind of engagement. I'm gonna make a friend somewhere, because that's just the way that it is for me. I meet friends and make friends in a very lovely kind of way, a very natural, organic kind of way when I'm out and about. So I'm fine with that kind of a outing and experience. But once I come back home, there are many times, many days where I am lonely. And it's because, just specifically in my relationship, the one that I would connect with most, he's disconnecting because he's been connecting with everybody else at work, or, he really doesn't need to engage with what I'm dealing with or what I'm working with or whatever the case is. So there are just times of loneliness. And then those are some hard times, but that's when, I can pray. I can make a phone call. I can also, what's really interesting I've noticed about myself is sometimes the loneliness or those moments of alone that I may be experiencing, it's actually time when I'm supposed to be busy doing something. And I don't mean busy as in just busy for no reason, but like probably should be doing something productive. Like doing my laundry that's piled up in my room, or cleaning out the refrigerator, or maybe taking a nap, or maybe going for a walk that I need to go on, or finishing up some planning that needs to happen, or calling and reach out to someone to see how they're doing, or give an update to someone who's been checking in on me. So sometimes what is a feeling of loneliness or alone could actually be me avoiding doing some work. So I have to be careful. I think we should be careful. I'll speak for myself. I need to be careful with identifying like all those quiet moments as I'm alone or lonely. Probably need to be doing something productive, but it is true. I definitely have felt lonely, and it's really not lonely because I don't know myself, don't want to get to know myself, but I may just be avoiding some work that myself needs to be doing. So I think that is it.
I don't talk to myself, I talk with myself. It's been just over a week, I guess, since my last confession. And the question for this week is, am I actually lonely, or am I just unfamiliar with my own company? I'll say this question for me is probably relatively easy, right? I don't get lonely very easy. If I were to sit down and talk with myself about how I feel when I'm alone, I would say that my alone space and my alone time, my quiet time, is time for me to recharge. I'm an introvert, so time in solitude, which I like to call it rather than alone time or being lonely, is a place to recharge, a place to rejuvenate, a place to have these conversations with myself, run scenarios through my mind, come up with ideas, generate, process. So like that alone time or quiet time for an extended thing, without children being around the house, it gives me more of what I want at the end of the day. So like I would never qualify it as loneliness. As I'm recording this, I'm actually coming back into town from a work trip. I was away from home for about a week, where most of those days I spent anywhere between 8 to 12 hours with coworkers. So as somebody who is an introvert and needs his solitude and alone time, like I was not getting very much of it. But at the end of the day, in a new city that I had been there before, it was my second time being there. I had some quiet time, I had some alone time, and you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, am I lonely? Do I miss my wife? Yes, of course, I miss my wife, but it wasn't really about loneliness. I would call it more boredom than anything. I think I am so used to doing things with her that like not having her there for me would qualify as loneliness, right? Like want to go explore the city. And I did a little bit of that while I was there. But also like after a day of interacting with a whole bunch of people in person for so long, like I felt completely drained in a lot of ways. So like that time at the end of the day was really about, recharging in my solitude. So I didn't have a chance to feel lonely, but I did have a chance to feel bored and wanting to run around the city and do stuff. Of course, it was also costing like $30 a trip for every Uber I went somewhere, which was also like a deterrent to stay in my loneliness, in my solitude. But yeah, definitely like, I would say I don't get lonely very easy, but I can get bored without my partner in crime, right? Like to have my cut buddy there with me. So that's where I would probably say it probably comes in a little bit more, where you're used to having, certain presences in the house that bring a certain, liveliness, excitement, a certain partnership. Used to coming home and having, kids doing crazy stuff around the house, here and there, trials and tribulations of the day. But I still get that every now and then from a distance, when I call and talk to them and they, tell me what's going on with life. But yeah, like missing out on the presence of the children, I don't feel lonely because I still have my best friend with me. So I would say like, I'm not unfamiliar with my own company. I am at peace and might even say at my best with my own company. It's the place where I recharge and I get all of my mojo back. So like, on the flip side of that, Jackie will say at times like, I'm in the house, but she still feels lonely because, I'm in my solitude place and I'm trying to recharge, whereas she is an extrovert and she kind of needs that constant interaction to kind of recharge. And if I'm in my recharge mode and she's in her recharge mode at the same time, like those two things don't mix. So it can bring an air of loneliness to the house because I need to be alone to recharge. She needs to be with other people to recharge, and those two things don't mix. They fight against each other. So I think that's an interesting perspective to kind of think of, am I actually causing someone else's loneliness by having my own recharging in solitude? In some ways, yes. It's not an easy thing to think about, but, there has to be a balance to it, I guess. There's definitely going to be a time when I'm going to have to, or I do give and push outside of my introvert comfort zone in order to, make sure that she's getting her tank filled in that way of having more interaction. And I think she does the same thing too. And like, I think as she's getting older, she needs a little bit more solitude time as well to kind of recharge. Definitely not as much as I need. But that balance of sort of loneliness in the household is now dependent upon two people, right? So like when the kids are home, if I'm in recharge mode and I'm, in my own space, she has Miles, who's a lot like her and outgoing and extroverted. And my older son, Xavier, was sort of introvert, extrovert, a little bit of both. So like if I wasn't able to give that, she had someplace else to go. So like I've lost my buffer and so forth. I've lost my help, my backup, to kind of, feed and recharge her extroversion, I guess is the word. So now I guess my job does get a little bit more difficult. Like I have to really make a conscious effort and make sure that I am, coming out of my cocoon, out of my catacomb, my shell, whatever you want to call it, a little bit more because she's going to need that. There's not someone else there to fill that gap. I think I just thought of that. That actually sounds like it's making some sense. Hope that's helping you guys out. It's definitely helping me out. But yeah, all in all, I would say I am not Mr. Lonely at all. I am Mr. Solitude and enjoy being in that space, and have to make sure that I am coming out of that space in order to fulfill the needs of my partner who thrives when I'm out of that space. So, maybe there's something you want to think about for yourself too. Like as your kids are leaving, as life changes happen, as, friends and family may move away, may leave, how are you kind of dealing with yourself in your own space is a question. How do you kind of get to know yourself? And maybe you're in an environment where you don't have much time to yourself. You kind of get that alone time, and maybe you find some things about yourself that, you find much more interesting about who you are, or maybe you don't like about who you are, and you want to take some time to change those things. So it's kind of cool to be in this space sometimes, cool and challenging, I would say, to be in that space where you're kind of confronted with just you and yourself, And what effect do you have on people when you come back out of that, aloneness, out of that solitude? So that's my thought for this episode. Come out of my solitude a little bit more and make sure I am taking away her solitude. That's the way to think about it.